Prehistoric Planet is something truly special, but before I get into the show and talk about it in detail, I thought I'd give some context as to why this one documentary is such a huge benchmark for dinosaur-related media. It all starts in 1999. Walking with Dinosaurs hit the scene, and 10-year-old me was fortunate enough to have a close friend of mine let me borrow a VHS copy of the series. As a kid who had grown up with a consistently steady diet of dinosaur media, I ate it up. What BBC was able to achieve in this show was nothing short of revolutionary. In the same way that Jurassic Park raised the bar for dinosaur depictions in media, Walking with Dinosaurs opened our eyes to what these animals could really have behaved like in their natural habitats. For however outdated it might be in terms of science, Walking with Dinosaurs really did put prehistoric life within the context of serious natural history documentaries, and it was glorious. Through the use of state-of-the-art CGI combined with practical effects, brilliant narration, and a keen eye for immersive realism, this documentary was able to become a long-lasting phenomenon that spawned a sequel series, prequel series, several spin-offs, and even a traveling live show. Oddly enough, Walking with Dinosaurs would remain one of the few pieces of paleo media to maintain that level of earnest respect for these creatures being portrayed as living, breathing animals. Now we fast forward to 2019. I had just seen Jon Favreau's remake of The Lion King. It's a solid film, not without its flaws, but the technology on display in that film was jaw-dropping, and a true leap forward from what had been achieved in prior films like The Jungle Book or the recent Planet of the Apes films. Photorealistic CGI animals are now a thing, and the one thought I had after seeing The Lion King was, we need to see this applied to dinosaurs, set in prehistoric times. When you take this level of visual effects and you apply it to a film that requires characters to arrange themselves in outlandish musical number formations and actually sing songs, something doesn't quite work. But if you actually frame them in the context of a natural history documentary and also use the technology to resurrect animals we've never actually seen with our eyes, that's how you get something that works. Which is why you can only imagine the excitement that must have taken all dinosaur fans by storm when it was announced that MPC, the visual effects company behind the Lion King remake, was tapped to work on a brand new dinosaur documentary being produced by Jon Favreau. This was the perfect application of what had been achieved in the Lion King, and it was about damn time. In somewhat ironic fashion, between Walking with Dinosaurs and Prehistoric Planet, we haven't had much dinosaur media that aimed to update our perception of these creatures. We've had new Jurassic Park films that I always like to say have gone less dinosaur and more kaiju over the years, focusing on comic book style action, outlandish sci-fi plotting, big dinosaur fights, and deliberate reliance on nostalgic, outdated dinosaur designs. As fun as it is to frame dinosaurs through the lens of a blockbuster monster movie, there is no denying that we've been starved for a more realistic and up-to-date depiction of dinosaurs, one that has a high-profile level of production value. Until now. Let's just get right into it. I'll be discussing key moments from the episode in detail, so if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you watch it first just to avoid any potential spoilers. Not that it's a story-driven show or anything like that. Episode 1 focuses on coastal habitats in the late Cretaceous period. It opens with a sequence that contains footage that we've already seen in the first teaser clip of the show, and it's really interesting to see that sequence in the context of the whole show, just because it's got notable changes from what was actually released on YouTube. We're shown the famous father T-Rex. Apparently he's called Hank, according to the rest of the internet, but he's taken a swim with his young, gets stalked by a mosasaur, and makes landfall into a nearby beach where he begins to prey on a turtle carcass. It makes sense to open the documentary with the most famous dinosaur of all time, as it sets the stage for what's to come without breaking out of what we're already familiar with as people who have a passing knowledge of dinosaurs at the very least. The T-Rex design is, well, the greatest goddamn reconstruction of this animal I've seen yet. The color patterns, subtle feathery integument along the body, forward-facing eyes, appropriate amount of bulk, everything just comes together to deliver an animal that feels truly realistic, without losing its iconic and regal appearance. It all just came together with this one. They nailed it. The juveniles are also wonderfully designed, as seen in the teaser clip. But like I mentioned, I wanted to highlight that the sound design for these little guys is quite improved in the actual episode versus the YouTube teaser that we got. They sound less expressive and there's a lot more subtlety to the accompanying music in this particular sequence. It's a pretty damn good way to open the show. Another huge highlight of this episode is the entire Pterosaur beach sequence. I'll say this right now. The 4th episode of Walking with Dinosaurs was awesome and all, but this was the first time where I've felt like a pterosaur that I've seen in media convincingly behaved in a modern view. With the pterosaurs, they didn't lean too heavily on birds for reference, but they also didn't lean too heavily on bats. They found a happy medium in between, and since these animals are neither bird nor bat, it felt so fresh to see this approach. Outside of the amazing color patterns, details on their beaks, translucent wing membranes, and the full coats of pycnofibers on their models, the real magic of the pterosaurs in this show lies in the animation and the cinematography. Oftentimes, we're shown pterosaurs that are reconstructed with little to no consideration towards the weight of their skeletons. The way that the baby Alcyones would get buffeted by the wind as they made their first attempts at flight really sold me on these animal skeletons being as lightweight as we know they are. It looked like the wind was doing most of the heavy lifting with their flight, and that made all the difference. And then there's the Barbaradactylus attack sequence, which is filmed perfectly. The animals being cast against the sunset, the rhythm of it all, the distant camera that looked like it was trying to keep up with the action. It's pure nature documentary perfection. And this was the first significant moment in the episode where I really got pulled away from the artistry of what I was watching, and I just believed I was watching real animals on screen. The pterosaur stuff in this episode is on another level. Another favorite highlight of mine was the mosasaur allowing itself to get cleaned by smaller fish and crustaceans. I love mosasaurs, and this was such a neat thing to see, especially when you take into consideration how it's executed in the show. You get these extreme close-ups of what look like a practical effect, showing crusty bits of shed skin getting torn off the scaly surface of the mosasaur's body. And I loved how the thing just parks itself near the surface against a reef, so it can have easy access to air during the cleaning. The mosasaur individual in this sequence, actually based on a specific species, Mosasaurus hoffmanni, it's a fantastic design. These things were actually squamates, meaning they're grouped with lizards, and they really put an effort towards conveying that in this creature's design. The head takes on the appearance of a monitor lizard, and the forked tongue is an interesting touch that seems to have been put in there to further sell the animal's relationship with lizards and snakes. The mosasaur cleaning sequence is interrupted by a fight that I gotta say is probably my least favorite sequence in the episode. I don't know, there was just something really off about the series of events and how it was all edited. The shots of the mosasaurs tussling about were cool, but the resolution and the dramatization surrounding the outcome of the fight just felt kind of tacky and overly cinematic. Many nature documentaries will try and stage the wildlife footage to tell narrative stories, but I feel like the episode dipped a foot too far in that direction with this particular sequence. There's also a heavy focus on the elasmosaurid known as Tuarangiosaurus, and I absolutely love how these were designed and executed. They were given tons of screen time surrounding many aspects of behavior that we aren't really used to when it comes to depictions of plesiosaurs in media. Out of all the famous marine reptiles from the Mesozoic, I've always felt that plesiosaurs got the short end of the stick, so it's pretty neat that these seem to be the main focus of the episode. The birthing scene at the very end was pure, wholesome, and emotionally resonant thanks to the beautiful score and the delicate animation of the baby Tuarangiosaurus. That whole sequence it perfectly ended the episode. Overall, episode 1 was a strong as hell introduction to a brand new age of dinosaur media. The love and respect being displayed towards paleontology and real research, it's astounding. You know, I gotta say that the episode kinda seems to be playing around with expectations. While it opens up with the most famous dinosaur ever, the huge majority of the episode actually places a seemingly strict and disciplined emphasis on non-dinosaur animals. Whether it's the pterosaurs, the plesiosaurs, the mosasaurs, coral reefs, or the bioluminescent ammonites, the show aims to educate about lesser-known prehistoric creatures that are all amazing in their own right. That's only further aided by the punchy vignette structure of this documentary. It's definitely got a lot of Planet Earth inspiration, but in select moments you also get that walking with dinosaurs feel, and in turn it just makes Prehistoric Planet stand on its own. But anyway, that's my thoughts on episode 1. Stay tuned for my thoughts on the other episodes.